Hey guys, Tacoma guy here. Subscribe, like, and share if you like the content. Alright, here we go. Big news. Third gen Tacoma 3.5 Supercharger. So I was scrolling on the site. I periodically check. I do searches here and there. I have a second gen now. I really don't think it's worth putting a supercharger on that one for other reasons. I'll get into that later in the video. So I've been watching for the new one because my truck's 10 years old, so it's getting there. It's good to keep, but I don't know how much more money I want to stick into it because I'm going to have to update here eventually. But now there's a kit coming for the third gen Tacoma 3.5. This is big. This is really going to be a nice supercharger. This is going to be the ticket. That's going to be a better value than supercharging the second gen. And I'm going to tell you why in a little bit. I am probably the biggest hater on the 3.5 in the trucks because they're too little. They don't have enough torque. I think it's a good engine for gas mileage, but really the mileage isn't that much better. You're talking 1 mile to the gallon better if it's stock. You can do things like hypermile it and get your mileage up where the old one you can't. You can drive the second gen any way you want. It gets the same, whatever mileage your truck gets, it gets. You can drive it like a grandma, a grandpa, or like a crazy fool. It'll still get the same mileage no matter what you do. You can put plugs in it, synthetic fluids, overinflate your tires. Whatever you do, you're still getting the same mileage. The new one does seem to react very well to, if you drive it easy and do things, you can raise the gas mileage. You can adjust it with your driving. That said, that 3.5, it has less torque. They don't have the low end of a bigger motor. I've wanted Toyota just to put a bigger engine in, but a modern one with good low end torque, decent horsepower, maybe 300 horsepower, and it could still probably get the same mileage that these trucks are getting. Because it's not the total horsepower, it's how much horsepower it takes to move the vehicle and the efficiency of the engine. But with this supercharger, this is going to fix that problem really quick. This is going to make this a better engine than the 4-liter with the super. When you supercharge a supercharger, this is going to be a better engine, and I'm going to get into that, kind of explain some of the details of what we know right now. We don't know everything, but we do know what's coming out. If you click on this, there's no information on it yet. Price looks a little steep. It's a steep price, but if you're looking for power, it might be worth it. It might be worth it. I think that's a little high. I think it's about $1,000 high, but it depends on the tuning software that comes with it and things like that. So the one thing that we know is that this is going to be based on the 1900, the TVS technology. The new supercharger is going to be based on this new TVS supercharger from Eaton. Both Edelbrock and Magnuson use these rotors. These rotors are efficient, 12% more efficient than the old one. This is making them almost as efficient as turbos in the other superchargers, but you have the instant torque. The nice thing about an Eaton is it's a root style, it's a positive displacement supercharger, so you have instant power from idle all the way up. No other supercharger, no other forced induction has the response of this supercharger. All the fastest cars are putting the new, well, there's a couple of them. The Magnuson and the Edelbrock, they've just both come out with a bigger supercharger, and everyone's switching out their screw type superchargers. All of them are getting switched out. So everybody is updating to these new TVS superchargers, so that one, they're so much more efficient, and now they've went to a bigger supercharger that can flow more air, so they can produce the power. I think the fastest, well, I know that the fastest stock bottom end Mustang has it. I think the fastest stick shift Mustang is using these new rotors. The fastest Camaro is using these new rotors. This is the supercharger. You go from a screw type, even the screw type has pretty fast, builds boost pretty fast. And these new superchargers build torque much faster. It's instantaneous. Turbos, you have to wait for them to spool, but they can. If you have a small turbo, they can build pretty quick, but they lose top end. The nice thing about these rotors is you get that instant power, and you still get the top end power. The power doesn't fall off on the top like a lot of the old ones did. Like, that's the problem with the one for the second gen, is this old supercharger is not that technology. This is that old MP90, and it's okay, but it's not that efficient. This is not the best. It's good for instant power, but it's noisy. It builds a lot of heat. It can only flow. I mean, this motor is not a top end motor anyways, but you see you can get about 290 horsepower out of that rotor. If you go to the 4Runner, okay, the 4Runner and FJ Cruiser are actually using that technology in the 1320, okay, and then they are making a little bit more power. Here's a different test. Magnuson Supercharger on the 4Runner. Here we go. And you're building almost right around 300 horsepower, 300 foot-pounds of torque. So a little bit more. I mean, that motor starts with more power, but I don't know, at the wheels it's pretty close to the same at the wheels. Rated horsepower, who cares? It's what you have at the wheels when you're doing performance. This is basically the same power as the Tacoma. Yeah, it's got 10 more horsepower because it's a little bit more efficient rotor, and you can see the power is not falling off as bad. And again, these are all with stock. These are both with stock tunes and stock pulleys, so that's going to be adjustable. What we're getting with the second gen Tacoma, history of the TVS, 12% more efficient. I think this is the size that the second gen has, something like this, but it's not these new rotors. It's the old rotors, so they're 12% less efficient. They build way more heat, 50 to 70 degrees hotter intake temperatures probably. This is what the 4Runner uses right here, and that builds 300 horsepower with the 1320. This is what we're getting as the 1900. This supercharger right here is what's in the Z06. A similar rotor to this is in the Z06 Corvette. That makes 650 horsepower. This supercharger right here in the ZR1 makes 770 horsepower. So this supercharger is capable of 600 horsepower on a V8. So this is going to be overkill for a V6. That's way more than what you need in a V6. In fact, they're recommending this to be on a 4 to 8 liter. And that's fine. That's good. What that means is this supercharger is going to flow a lot of air. You're not going to need a super small pulley. So with the large pulley, this supercharger is going to be moving a lot of air. That means with the bigger supercharger, they're learning the bigger supercharger you put on, it builds less heat. You don't have to push the limits of the supercharger to make the power. So this supercharger can run at 30-40% and double the horsepower probably, or increase the horsepower substantially without overheating the intake air. So it runs cooler. You're not going to get knocked. You're not going to break the engine. Supercharger's running much easier. Plus you have more headroom. If you want to build more power, you can. So what does that mean for us? So what kind of power is that going to produce in the 3.5? We have some examples. Edelbrock makes this for the Colorado. It's not the same exact engine. It starts with more horsepower, but these 3.5s all make basically the same power, torque. Their torques are all the same within 5 foot-pounds of torque. Everyone, Honda, Chevy, Toyota, the engines are basically very, very similar. This is the Edelbrock. They use the little bit smaller one. This is not the 1900. They use the 1740. It's pretty close, okay? That's how much it flows. So it flows just slightly less. 1740, we're getting the 1900. And that's that kit. See, it's a little bit cheaper. This is what they're getting on a Colorado. 345 horsepower, 306 foot-pounds of torque. So this is what I'm talking about with running these more efficient superchargers on a smaller engine. You're getting more torque than the second gen. You're getting more torque than the 4Runner. And you're getting much more horsepower. So you're getting the same torque as those, even more torque, okay, and 40 to 50 more horsepower. This new supercharger is going to be awesome. It's going to make this motor, this engine, run a lot better. So Edelbrock makes it for the Colorado. Edelbrock also makes this supercharger for the Camaro. I just did this as an example because, again, it's still the same, okay, 3.6, but still basically the same engine. And with this one, see, they're at 376. And 320 foot-pounds of torque. And this price comes with a little more horsepower from the factory, but these torque curves are nice and flat. Okay, and they're building power all the way up. See, this horsepower just keeps going. With these new rotors, the power doesn't fall off. And when you have a supercharger that's larger than you need, the capacity is more than the engine. So that supercharger will make power past the engine's capability. So it'll never run out of top end. So you're getting the benefits of the low end torque. The Roots type has the most low end torque. These new rotors can build the same top end now as the other superchargers or as a turbo. They never stop pulling. So they're very efficient. So this is on the Camaro. Again, these are all factory tuned. So I think with the, we're going to be in, realistically, you're talking 350 to 360 foot-pounds of torque, with about 7 psi. Then we have, what if you put a better tune on there? One of the hiccups that one of the things we don't know yet is how we're going to tune this. I'm assuming HP Tuners is going to be making the software to tune the supercharger. They don't have this out yet. Let me click on this. Go to vehicles. One of these days we're going to go to HP Tuners, click vehicles. This is what I was doing. I was actually looking up software for somebody else and realized, oh, wait a minute, they make Toyota stuff. I was blown away. I just figured, well, I'll just sell my truck, get a different one. I thought I was going to have to go to a different brand because there's no way to tune these trucks. But now there is. There's your Tacoma right there, the second generation. And eventually they'll add, they're working on third generation right now. When that comes available, I think they're going to use this software, which would be amazing because then you can flash it. They're going to have a canned tune. So you're going to get 350 horsepower, I'm assuming. Okay, 350 horsepower, probably 300 foot-pounds of torque, which will make that truck amazing. That's what that truck needs. You probably aren't, honestly, going to need any more than that, 90% of the people. But once you get used to it, you're going to want more, and that supercharger is going to have lots of capability. That's with the smallest pulley. If you're at 350 horsepower with the smallest pulley, you're going to be able to pick up a lot of power. With HP Tuners, then you could have someone build you maps, tweak it, and plus you can do transmission adjusting and things like that. There's going to be a lot more you can do, so you can fine-tune the truck to how you like to drive it. If you're driving in the city and you want maximum gas mileage, you're going to want a slightly different tune, where if you're on the dunes, you need a lot of torque. You're going to need more fuel, okay, to climb the dunes. If you're pulling a trailer, you're probably going to need extra fuel and a little bit different mapping. So you're going to want to fine-tune your map to how you drive it, okay? And hopefully, I think this is who they're going to be using, okay? But we don't know. That's a big question mark. So, but when that does come out, if you can put your own tune on it, again, here's that Colorado with the slightly smaller supercharger, but the same rotors. Different company, but again, they use the same rotor pack from Eaton, okay? Thought I had a dyno Sure, it's got a load. But with the Colorado, you're talking 415 horsepower. On these Camaros that I was showing you, I looked a few up. I was finding, you know, with YouTube, there's clickbait everywhere. But basically, they're making 411 horsepower, 410. So this Edelbrock Supercharger on the V6, I think that's still the standard pulley, just tuned. They're making 410. Maybe it's one step smaller pulley. I'm not sure. But I know there's a lot of cars out there, and these Camaros making 410. This Colorado's making 410. That's pretty much what that supercharger can make that power pretty easy. And maybe that's the capability of the motor without, that could be one size smaller pulley, I'm not sure. But 410 horsepower seems to be what everyone's making, so it's pretty easy. Basically a tune and whatever adjustments they're doing. Maybe that's when you get full exhaust and things like that, supporting mods to go with it. So once you start supercharging it now, and you can tune it, now when you put your exhaust on, that's going to make a difference, okay? When you have a stock truck and you can't tune it, that exhaust doesn't make as much of a difference. That intake can't make as much of a difference because you can't adjust for it. That's the problem with the second gen. You can put an intake on it. It may make it run better. It may make it run worse. So you're just kind of swinging at the fence and there's no way to adjust it. Now with the HP tuners, you can go in there and you can readjust for that intake and fix it. Now you can make it run better. Now you can pick up that 10 or 20 horsepower, whatever it is that intake's giving you. And it runs better all the way across. If you put an exhaust on, you can adjust for that. You can make the truck run much better. All these modifications need a tune to go with them. That's the Tacoma problem. Everyone says, well, exhaust doesn't do anything, intake doesn't do anything, and by itself, they might not. But when you combine that with a tune, you can take a naturally aspirated motor and add anywhere from 20 to 50 horsepower by doing your exhaust, intake, and a tune. Those things combine together to produce the power. You can't do one individually. So with that new supercharger, that's going to be capable of, it's easily going to be capable of 400 horsepower. Just whether if we're going to have the modifications to be able to modify it. The reason these probably all stop at 400 horsepower is probably because of the limitation of the fuel system. When you start fuel injecting these cars, you're going to need bigger injectors. You're going to need higher octane fuels, things like that. So I don't know if this is going to be capable of, I don't know the flex fuel capability of the third generation. Truck guys don't know that much about E85, but that would be the ticket. If you live by E85, to be able to mix in 20 to 30% E85 with this supercharger, now you can produce, instead of 400 horsepower, you're going to produce 450 horsepower. Basically, that extra octane can give you 30, 40, 50 horsepower. We're not used to that because we didn't have tuners for our vehicles to be able to take advantage of that. Also, the next thing is fuel injectors. You can't just throw flex fuel or make more horsepower. You need the amount of fuel to go with it. So right now, I don't know what we have for fuel injectors. There may be a limitation on that. And then that would be basically the limiting factor, would be what fuel we can run and how big of injectors we can get. But other than that, yeah, this is going to be a great supercharger. We're getting a pretty big supercharger, so it can make big power. Again, the supercharger is capable of 600 horsepower. That supercharger is not going to hold that motor back. That motor is probably capable of maybe 400 to 500 horsepower at the most. So the supercharger is not going to be the limitation. So, yep, excellent. So that's my video. Maybe got a little lengthy, but trying to give some information, trying to give some education on the superchargers, why I think it's good. This is going to be a great system. Now it takes us the supporting mods to go with it. If we have good tuning software, and we can get things like different fuel injectors and flex fuel kits, maybe a couple things like that if there's enough interest in it. Maybe we'll have to go with meth injection. That's what most people do because you can put it on any car. For the normal people, we'll get 350 horsepower. The people who want to tune a little bit will get 400, and the people who want to go out will get probably 450 horsepower, I would think, out of this motor. Pretty easy. 450, maybe 500, I don't know. But supercharger, probably about 450 horsepower would probably be the top. So anywhere from 350 to 450 horsepower. This should be a pretty good mod. That's all I got. Subscribe, like, and share. Thank you. Goodbye.